My twin sister and I shared a liver for 16 years, earning our parents $13,000 a month in medical study payments. When the doctor said we could finally separate, my sister dug her nails into our shared ribs and whispered, "I'll die without you." Then my parents installed a lock on the outside of our basement door and said it was just until I stopped upsetting her. My sister and I shared a liver and part of our rib cage for 16 years. The monthly check started arriving when we were 3. $8,000 from the University Medical Center, $5,000 from a rare conditions research fund, smaller amounts from medical journals that bought our imaging scans. Mom quit her second job the day we became longitudinal study subjects. She kept a spreadsheet of our worth, updating it after every appointment. By the time we were 10, we'd been in 17 medical papers. Lily loved when the researchers called us special. I memorized the exit locations in every hospital we visited. When Dr. Lauren said separation was finally possible, I felt my first real hope in years. Lily's nails dug into our shared ribs. "We're not doing it," she announced, her voice shaking. "I'll die without you. My organs won't remember how to work alone." Mom's hand tightened on the renewal forms from the Pediatric Anomaly Institute. $75,000 for another year of orderly evaluations. "The girls aren't ready for such a traumatic change," she told Dr. Lauren smoothly, but I hadn't said anything. That night, Lily pressed her forehead against mine. 60% of separated twins experience organ failure," she whispered. Mom showed me the studies. I'd seen those same studies. They were from the 1980s, about twins who shared hearts. We only shared a liver, some ribs, minor vessels, nothing that couldn't be divided, nothing that would kill us. Lily knew this too. I'd seen her Google searches. The basement door locked from the outside now. "Just until you stop upsetting your sister," Dad said, installing the deadbolt. Lily had started hyperventilating whenever I mentioned surgery, clutching at her chest, claiming she couldn't breathe. The research team was paying triple for stress response data in conjoined pairs. Every panic attack was another data point worth hundreds. I started keeping track of everything. 3 ongoing studies, 6 medical conferences a year where we were presented, a monthly feature in the Congenital Conditions Quarterly. Last year alone, we'd been flown to 14 universities for grand rounds. At each one, Lily glowed while telling our story. "We're not 2 people," she'd say, gripping my hand until my fingers went numb. "We're one person who happens to have 2 minds." The medical students would scribble notes. The checks would clear. I'd smile until my face hurt. "What will happen to me?" Lily whispered in the dark, her breath hot against my ear. "When we're apart, who will remind me to breathe? Who will make sure my heart keeps beating?" She'd trained herself to match my breathing perfectly, to sync our heartbeats when she pressed close. Sometimes I'd hold my breath just to see if she'd notice. She always did. "See?" she'd gasp. "I need you." But once, when she thought I was sleeping, I heard her breathing normally, independently, for hours. 3 months until we turned 18. Mom had already committed us to a 5-year study on psychological adaptation in adult conjoined twins. The contract specified we'd only be paid if we remained connected. Dad showed it to me like a threat. Lily had started sleeping with her arm wrapped around our connection point, whimpering if I shifted in the night. "Practice being alone," I told her once. She didn't speak for 3 days, just hummed the same 4 notes over and over until I begged her to stop. The separation surgery had a 98% success rate for cases like ours. I'd memorized the statistics, hidden the printouts under our mattress. Lily found them and ate the pages one by one while maintaining eye contact. "Now the lies are gone," she said, paper between her teeth. The ink stained her lips blue for days. That night, she told our parents I was trying to cull her. Mom installed a baby monitor in the basement. "For your safety," she explained. But it only turned on when Lily cried, and Lily had learned to cry on command. Huge, gasping sobs that shook both our bodies. "She wants to cut me away," she'd wail. "She wants to leave me empty." 2 months and 23 days until freedom. Unless Lily figured out what I was planning. Unless she found the phone I'd hidden, the messages to Dr. Lauren, the emancipation paperwork I filled out 1 letter at a time while she slept. She'd started taking sleeping pills, crushing them into our shared dinner so we'd both go under. But I'd learned to make myself throw up, silently, quickly, before the substances hit my system. "Together forever," Lily murmured in her drugged sleep, her fingers twisted in my hair, just like Mom promised. The basement walls were covered in her drawings now. 2 girls with one shadow, hearts connected by red crayon veins. In every picture, one girl was smiling. The other had no face at all. I'd already chosen which one I'd be. The phone vibrated against my hip, hidden beneath layers of clothing where Lily couldn't feel it. Dr. Lauren had texted back. My heart hammered as I waited for Lily's breathing to deepen from the sleeping pills before checking the message. Legal team reviewing your case. Keep documenting everything. I deleted the message immediately, then cleared the trash folder. Lily had gotten too good at checking my digital footprints when she pretended to sleep. The emancipation paperwork was almost complete, hidden inside the lining of an old stuffed animal that Lily had declared creepy years ago. One more signature line to forge, Mom's, and I'd be ready. Lily stirred beside me, mumbling something about blood tests. Even unconscious, she was performing. I'd started timing her sleep-talking episodes. They always happened exactly 20 minutes after Mom's footsteps passed overhead, just long enough for our mother to settle in and hear her distressed daughter through the baby monitor. The next morning, Lily woke up clutching her side of our connection, gasping dramatically. Mom rushed downstairs within seconds, still in her robe, cradling her coffee mug like it held liquid gold. The University of Michigan had just increased their offer by 20% for exclusive imaging rights to our separation point. She was pulling away from me all night, Lily whimpered, letting tears pool perfectly in her eyes without spilling. She'd been practicing that trick in the bathroom mirror when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I could feel my organs shutting down. Mom smoothed Lily's hair, her wedding ring catching the basement's fluorescent light. The ring she'd upgraded last year after the National Institute of Health started their twin study. Maybe we should increase your anxiety medication, sweetheart. Dr. Morrison said he could prescribe something stronger. I kept my breathing steady, matching Lily's rhythm to avoid suspicion. Dr. Morrison was the psychiatrist who diagnosed me with separation obsession disorder after a 5-minute video consultation that Mom had secretly recorded. His signature was on half the forms keeping us in this basement. The pulling is getting worse, Lily continued, pressing her palm against our ribs. Sometimes I can't tell which heartbeat is mine anymore. That was almost funny. I'd felt Lily practicing irregular breathing patterns last week, trying to throw off our synchronized rhythms. She'd given up after I started humming show tunes to maintain my own pace. Mom left after extracting promises that I'd be gentler with my movements. The moment her footsteps faded, Lily's tears dried instantly. She pulled out her phone, the newest model, a gift from the research team at Johns Hopkins for being their star subject. The documentary crew wants to interview us next month, she said, scrolling through emails. They're offering $50,000 for exclusive rights to our story. I watched her type a response, accepting immediately, signing both our names with practiced ease. She'd been forging my signature since we were 12, starting with permission slips for field trips I never wanted to attend. You know what's funny? Lily said, not looking up from her phone. Dr. Lauren called Mom yesterday. Said she was concerned about some unusual communication from our case. Mom told her we'd switched hospitals. My stomach dropped, but I kept folding laundry, separating our clothes into piles that would never actually be separated. The hidden phone felt like it was burning against my skin. I wonder who would try to contact our doctor behind our parents' backs, Lily continued, her voice light and casual. That would be really stupid, wouldn't it? Especially when Mom has all the legal rights until we're 18. She was fishing, but she didn't have proof, not yet. I focused on matching socks, noting that Lily had started buying identical pairs to mine, making it impossible to tell whose were whose. Another small way to erase the boundaries between us. That afternoon, the research team from Columbia arrived for our monthly evaluation. Lily transformed the moment they entered, becoming fragile and dependent, leaning into me like I was the only thing keeping her upright. I'd learned to play my part too, the selfish sister who didn't understand the sacred bond we shared. The synchronicity is remarkable, Dr. Jackson murmured, watching our vital signs on her tablet. Their heart rates align within 2 beats per minute. Lily squeezed my hand in our practice pattern, 2 short, 1 long, our signal to breathe together. I obeyed, knowing the cameras were recording, knowing this footage would be analyzed frame by frame in some medical journal. We've been practicing meditation together, Lily told them, her voice soft and dreamy, to prepare for a lifetime of connection. Dr. Jackson made notes, while her assistant set up the cognitive tests, always the same questions designed to show how our minds had melded over the years. Lily had memorized my answers from previous sessions, matching them perfectly to demonstrate our psychic bond. What's your earliest memory? There's something deeply unsettling about how calculated this whole medical circus is. The exact dollar amounts from each institution. Mom's spreadsheet tracking our value like we were stocks instead of daughters. The butterfly room at the museum, I answered truthfully. Yellow monarchs landing on our shoulders. Mine too, Lily said immediately, though I knew her real first memory was breaking my favorite doll and blaming it on the cat. We remember everything together. The team exchanged meaningful looks, probably calculating how much this synchronicity was worth in their next grant proposal. I smiled and played along, thinking about the lawyer Dr. Lauren had recommended, the one who specialized in medical autonomy cases. That night, Lily started her new routine. She'd wait until I was almost asleep, then jerk suddenly, gasping like she couldn't breathe. The first time I'd actually been concerned. By the fifth time, I recognized the performance. Mom had installed motion sensors that alerted her phone whenever we moved too much at night. I'm dying, Lily whispered loud enough for the baby monitor. Every time you pull away, I die a little bit. I wanted to tell her that I'd seen her medical files, the ones she thought she'd hidden. Her organs were perfectly healthy, stronger than mine in some cases. The only thing killing her was the thought of losing her meal ticket. 2 months and 20 days left. The next morning brought a new horror. Mom announced we'd be moving to a more secure facility for our safety, a private medical residence where we could be monitored 24 hours a day. The brochure showed a pristine white building with no windows on the ground floor. It's for the best, Dad said, avoiding my eyes. The Pediatric Anomaly Institute is funding everything. You'll have your own medical staff. Lily clapped her hands like a child at Christmas. Will we have a bigger room? Can we decorate it ourselves? I calculated quickly. The move was scheduled for 3 weeks. If I was going to escape, it had to be before then. Once we were in that facility, surrounded by medical staff who were being paid to keep us together, I'd never get out. That night, while Lily performed her breathing difficulties for the monitor, I felt around the edge of our mattress for the phone. My fingers found only empty space. The hiding spot had been discovered. Looking for something? Lily whispered, her breath hot against my ear. I had the most interesting conversation with Dr. Lauren today. She seemed very concerned about you, said you'd been showing signs of distress. My blood ran cold. Lily continued, her voice still sweet and soft. Don't worry, I told her everything was fine, that you were just confused, that sometimes you forget we're one person. She pulled out my phone from under her pillow, waving it just out of reach. Mom was very interested to see your search history, all those articles about successful separations, all those emails to lawyers. I lunged for the phone, but Lily had already thrown it across the room where it shattered against the concrete wall. The sound brought Mom running, and Lily immediately started hyperventilating, clutching at her chest. She tried to hurt me, Lily gasped, between theatrical sobs. She said she didn't care if I died. I opened my mouth to protest, but Mom was already preparing a sedative, the kind they used for our high-stress evaluations, the kind that made me too foggy to resist whatever came next. As the needle went in, I saw Lily's smile, not her public smile, the one she wore for cameras and doctors, her real smile, the one that reminded me we shared blood but had never shared a heart. 2 months and 19 days, if I lasted that long. The sedative made everything feel underwater, but I fought to stay conscious. Mom was on the phone, her voice drifting in and out of focus. Yes, Dr. Morrison, increased aggression. We may need to move up the timeline. Lily curled against me, playing the traumatized sister for our mother's benefit. Her fingers traced patterns on our shared ribs, spelling out words only I could feel. Stayforever. I closed my eyes and started planning again. The phone was gone, but Dr. Lauren knew something was wrong. The emancipation papers were still hidden. I just needed to be smarter, more careful. I needed to play Lily's game better than she did. 2 months and 19 days. I could make it. I had to. The sedative wore off slowly, leaving me groggy and disoriented. Lily had positioned herself carefully while I was unconscious, wrapping both arms around our connection point, like she was protecting it from invisible threats. Her breathing matched mine perfectly, a practiced synchronization that made my skin crawl. Mom stood by the basement door with a clipboard, making notes. The Pediatric Anomaly Institute had requested hourly behavioral logs leading up to our move. Each observation was worth $50. Even my drugged sleep had monetary value. I tested my limbs carefully, feeling the familiar weight of Lily against me. She stirred immediately, her fingers tightening on our shared ribs. The performance never stopped, even when she thought no one was watching. But I'd learned to see through it, to notice the calculated precision in every movement. The next few days brought a new level of surveillance. Mom installed additional cameras in the basement corners, their red lights blinking constantly. Dad ran cables along the walls, connecting everything to a central monitoring station upstairs. Lily helped them test the angles, making sure every inch of our living space was visible. I kept my face neutral, playing the subdued sister who'd learned her lesson. Inside, my mind raced through contingencies. The phone was gone, but Dr. Lauren knew something was wrong. The emancipation papers were still hidden in the stuffed animal. I just needed to find another way to communicate with the outside world. Lily started a new routine during our daily exercises. She'd stumble at specific moments, gasping and clutching at our connection point. Mom would rush to document these episodes, uploading the footage to the research portal. The University of Pennsylvania had started a new study on physical coordination in conjoined twins. Every stumble was worth data points. I played along, studying her with practiced concern, but I noticed how her stumbles only happened when the cameras were recording, how her gasps followed a predictable pattern. She'd rehearsed this routine in front of the bathroom mirror, perfecting the timing. One morning, while Lily was distracted by her phone, I managed to check the calendar hidden under our mattress. 17 days until the move, my window was closing fast. I needed to accelerate my plans, but carefully. Any suspicious behavior would trigger another round of sedatives. The research teams increased their visits. Sometimes 2 or 3 groups would come in a single day, each paying for exclusive access to different aspects of our condition. Lily thrived during these sessions, telling our story with practiced emotion. She developed different versions for different audiences, emphasizing whatever aspects would generate the most sympathy and funding. During a cognitive evaluation from Stanford, I noticed something interesting. The researcher's assistant had left her tablet unlocked on the table while setting up equipment. The screen showed an email inbox, tantalizingly close. If I could just send one message to Dr. Lauren, explain what was really happening. But Lily noticed my glance. Her hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard enough to hurt. Her smile never wavered as she answered the researcher's questions, but her nails dug into my palm with warning pressure. That night, she confronted me in the darkness. Her whisper was soft enough to avoid the monitors, but sharp enough to cut. She'd seen me looking at the tablet. She knew what I was thinking. "If you try anything like that again," she whispered, "I'll tell Mom you're planning to hurt yourself." They'd sedate me until the move, maybe longer. I lay still, feeling her breath against my ear, her arms wrapped possessively around our connection. She'd gotten better at this game, anticipating my moves before I made them. But I'd gotten better too. I'd learned patience, misdirection, the art of seeming defeated while planning victory. The next morning brought a surprise. Dr. Jackson from Columbia returned with a new proposal. They wanted to do a documentary series following our daily lives for the next year. The payment was substantial, enough to cover the down payment on the new facility Mom had been eyeing. Lily's eyes lit up at the mention of cameras following us constantly. She immediately started planning which stories to tell, which emotions to display. Mom was already calculating the profits, her fingers flying across her phone's calculator app. But I saw an opportunity. A documentary crew meant outside observers, people who weren't on Mom's payroll. If I could somehow signal to them, make them see what was really happening. The crew arrived 3 days later. 2 camera operators, a sound technician, and a director named Marcus, who spoke in soothing tones about capturing our authentic experience. Lily immediately charmed them, sharing anecdotes about our childhood that were half true, half performance art. I watched the crew carefully, studying their routines. The sound technician, a woman named Saba, seemed different from the others. She watched us with sharp eyes, noting the discrepancies between Lily's stories and my reactions. During a break, she adjusted her equipment near me, and I caught her giving me a questioning look. Over the next few days, I developed a subtle system. When Lily told her rehearsed stories, I'd tap my fingers against my leg in a specific pattern. Nothing obvious enough for the cameras, but visible to someone paying attention. Saba started watching for these signals, her expression growing more concerned with each session. Lily noticed the crew's changing dynamic. Watching Lily weaponize medical visits like she was collecting Pokemon cards while I tapped out distress signals was peak sibling rivalry, with stakes. Saba, the sound tech, might be the first person to notice that this touching twin story had more red flags than a circus tent. Lily doubled down on her performances, adding new layers of dependency and fear. She started having episodes during filming, clutching at our connection and gasping about feeling disconnected. The director ate it up, calling for close-ups of her tears, but Saba kept watching me. During one particularly dramatic scene where Lily claimed she could feel my thoughts pulling away from hers, I managed to mouth 2 words when the camera was focused on her. "Help me." The next day, Saba positioned her equipment differently. She created a blind spot where the documentary cameras couldn't see us, right by the sound mixing board. When Lily was distracted by the director's questions, Saba slipped me a note. "I know something's wrong. What do you need?" My heart pounded as I palmed the small piece of paper. This was my chance, but I had to be careful. Lily had developed an uncanny ability to sense when I was hiding something. I waited until she was deeply engaged in describing our psychic connection before writing a response. "Contact Dr. Lauren at University Medical Center. Tell her they're moving us in 11 days. Please." I slipped the note back to Saba during an equipment adjustment. She read it quickly, then nodded, almost imperceptibly. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. But Lily was too observant to miss the change in my demeanor. That night, she pressed closer than usual, her arms tight around our connection. She whispered stories about twins who died during separation, about organs that forgot how to function alone. Her fingers traced the outline of our shared ribs, mapping the territory she refused to surrender. The documentary crew returned daily, and Saba always found ways to position herself near me. Through subtle gestures and careful timing, she communicated that she'd reached Dr. Lauren. Help was coming, but I needed to hold on. Mom announced that the moving truck was scheduled for next week. She showed us pictures of our new room in the facility, emphasizing the medical equipment built into the walls. Everything we could need without ever leaving, without ever separating. Lily helped Mom pack our belongings, carefully wrapping her drawings of conjoined hearts. She'd started a new series, showing what happened to the girl without a face when she was alone. The images were disturbing, designed to unsettle me. She hung them where I'd see them first thing each morning. With 5 days left until the move, the documentary crew filmed what was supposed to be their final session. Lily gave an emotional speech about looking forward to our new home, to a lifetime of connection and love. The director praised her authenticity, talking about Emmy potential. But Saba had positioned her equipment to create another blind spot. As Lily basked in the director's praise, Saba showed me her phone screen. A message from Dr. Lauren. Legal injunction filed. Stall the move if possible. Team standing by. I had to buy time. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I initiated one of Lily's episodes. I jerked suddenly in my sleep, gasping and clutching at our connection. Lily woke instantly, confused by my performance of her own routine. Mom came running at the sounds of distress. I let tears stream down my face, borrowing Lily's techniques. I claimed I felt something wrong with our liver, a sharp pain that came and went. Mom's face went pale. Any complications could affect our value to the research teams. By morning, Mom had scheduled emergency consultations with 3 different specialists. The move would have to be postponed until they cleared us medically. Lily watched me with narrowed eyes, recognizing her own tactics being used against her. The first specialist found nothing wrong, but I'd learned from watching Lily. I described symptoms that were concerning but vague, impossible to prove or disprove. The second specialist ordered more tests. The third wanted to observe us for several days. Lily tried to undermine me, claiming she felt fine, that I was imagining things, but Mom couldn't risk our research value. Every test bought another day, another chance for Dr. Lauren's legal team to act. On what should have been moving day, we were in the hospital for an MRI. Lily held my hand with bruising force, her fury barely contained. She knew what I was doing, but she couldn't expose me without revealing her own deceptions. The technician positioning us for the scan was someone I'd never seen before. As she adjusted the equipment, she leaned close and whispered quickly, "I'm a colleague of Dr. Lauren. The legal team needs 1 more day. Can you maintain the performance?" I squeezed her hand once for yes. Lily felt the movement and turned to look at me, suspicion clear in her eyes. But the MRI machine was already humming to life, trapping us in its narrow tunnel where secrets echoed off the walls. After the scan, I escalated my performance. I claimed the pain was spreading, that I felt our connection pulling in ways it never had before. Mom's panic increased with each symptom I described. She called Dad, who contacted the Pediatric Anomaly Institute about postponing our admission. Lily fought back with her own escalation. She started hyperventilating during my episodes, claiming my distress was affecting her organs. It became a twisted competition, each of us trying to outperform the other, while Mom documented everything for the research teams. That night in the hospital, Lily waited until the nurses left before confronting me. "You know exactly what you're doing," she whispered. "I taught you too well." But she also knew that exposing me meant admitting her own lies. We were trapped in mutual deception. The next morning, Dr. Lauren arrived with a team of lawyers and medical ethicists. Mom tried to block them, but they had a court order. A judge had granted an emergency hearing on our medical autonomy based on concerns raised by multiple sources. Lily's mask finally slipped. She screamed at Dr. Lauren, accusing her of trying to murder us. She threw herself against our connection, claiming she could feel her organs shutting down. But without Mom's enabling and the basement's controlled environment, her performance looked exactly like what it was. The medical team separated us for individual evaluations. With Lily unable to monitor my responses, I finally told the truth. All of it. The financial exploitation, the forced confinement, the drugging, the planned move to a facility where we'd never have a chance at freedom. Lily told her own version, painting me as delusional and dangerous. But the lawyers had done their homework. They'd subpoenaed our medical records, the financial documents, the research contracts. The pattern of exploitation was clear. The hearing was scheduled for the next day. Mom hired her own lawyers, claiming she was protecting us from a traumatic separation. Dad stood by her side, avoiding my eyes. They'd built their entire lifestyle on our condition. Without us, the money would stop. That night in the hospital, Lily made one last attempt. She waited until the nurses changed shifts, then wrapped herself around our connection with desperate strength. She whispered about the surgeries that went wrong, the twins who bled out on operating tables, the empty spaces where shared organs used to be. But I'd spent 16 years learning the difference between her truth and her performances. I matched my breathing to hers one last time, felt our hearts hit the synchronization she'd forced on us. Then I deliberately changed my rhythm, breathing independently while she struggled to follow. The judge reviewed our case the next morning. Lily performed for him like she had for countless researchers, tears streaming as she described our unbreakable bond. Mom presented contracts and studies showing our value as conjoined subjects. Dad talked about the trauma of separation. But I had Saba's footage. She'd kept recording after the official documentary sessions ended, capturing Lily's mask slipping, the calculated nature of her episodes, the threats whispered in darkness. Dr. Lauren presented medical evidence showing we could be safely separated, that Lily's claims of organ dependency were fabricated. The judge's decision was swift. At 16, with clear evidence of exploitation and confinement, we had the right to make our own medical decisions. If I wanted separation and Lily didn't, the court would appoint separate advocates to represent our interests. Lily's scream shook the courtroom, not one of her performed gasps, but real, raw fury at losing control. Mom tried to approach us, but court security blocked her path. The financial empire built on our bodies was crumbling. Dr. Lauren's team took custody of us immediately. We were transferred to a specialized unit where separation surgeries were performed. Lily fought every step, alternating between rage and desperate pleas. She promised to stop the performances, to let me have more freedom, anything to maintain our connection. But I'd made my choice 16 years ago, the first time I memorized an exit location. The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks out, enough time for final tests and preparation. Lily would have her own room, her own doctors, her own chance at an independent life. The night before surgery, she tried one final manipulation. She curled against me like when we were children, before the money and cameras and performances. She whispered about being scared, about not knowing who she was without me. For a moment, I almost believed her. Then I felt her fingers tracing letters on our ribs. Not a plea this time, but a promise. She'd make me pay for this betrayal. Even separated, she'd find ways to hurt me. The real Lily had finally shown herself completely. I traced my own message back. I know, but I'm still choosing freedom. The surgical team prepped us the next morning. Why does Mom suddenly care so much about medical tests when she's been fine with all of Lily's fake episodes for years? Something about this shift feels off, like she's more worried about losing research money than actually believing anything's wrong. Mom and Dad weren't allowed in. though I could hear Mom sobbing in the hallway about lost opportunities. The anesthesiologist explained how the separation would work, how they'd divide our shared liver, remove the connected ribs, create individual closures. Lily maintained stony silence until the moment they wheeled us into surgery. Then she grabbed my hand with genuine desperation. For just a second, I saw my sister, not the performer, not the manipulator, but the girl who'd shared my blood for 16 years. But then the anesthesia took hold, and I felt myself floating away from her for the first time in our lives. The last thing I heard was the steady beep of 2 different heart monitors, already learning to beat independently. I woke up alone. The sensation was extraordinary. My own edges, my own breathing, my own heartbeat without echo. The surgical site ached, but it was my pain alone, no one else feeling it, no one else's rhythm to match. Dr. Lauren checked on me hourly. The separation had gone perfectly. Lily was recovering in another wing, her own medical team ensuring her organs adapted to independence. We'd both survive apart. The media requests started immediately. Everyone wanted to interview the separated twins, to document our journey. Mom tried to negotiate exclusive rights from her lawyer's office, but she no longer had any claim on my story. I declined every offer. My freedom wasn't for sale. Physical therapy took months, learning to balance without Lily's weight, to sleep without her warmth, to exist in singular space. But every day brought new discoveries. I could turn without negotiation, sleep without surveillance, breathe without performance. Lily recovered too, though I only heard updates through Dr. Lauren. She'd apparently embraced the media attention, selling her version of our story to the highest bidder. The girl who claimed she'd die without me was thriving in the spotlight, finally able to perform without my silent resistance. 6 months after separation, I got my first apartment, a studio with 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 set of everything. The silence was perfect. No monitors, no cameras, no fingers tracing threats in the darkness. I enrolled in online classes, catching up on the education that had been secondary to our performance schedule. Got a part-time job at a bookstore where no one knew my medical history. Built a life that was entirely, boringly, wonderfully mine. On our 18th birthday, I received a package, no return address, but I recognized Lily's handwriting. Inside was a photo from when we were young, before the money and the lies. 2 girls with 1 shadow, genuinely smiling. But underneath, she'd written a message. The documentary airs next month. I told them everything, my version. I threw the photo away and changed my phone number. Lily could have the spotlight she'd always craved. I had something better, a life where no one watched, no one paid, and no one owned my story but me. Dr. Lauren still checked in occasionally. The separation had become a case study, but she always asked permission before sharing any details. She understood what freedom meant to someone who'd never had it. One day, while shelving books at work, a customer recognized me. She'd seen early footage from the documentary, wanted to know how I was doing. I smiled politely and pointed her toward the self-help section. My story wasn't for sale anymore. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, tracing the scar where Lily and I had been joined. It was healing well, fading into a line that would eventually be barely visible. Proof that some connections were meant to be severed, that sometimes separation was the greatest act of love. 2 years later, I graduated from community college. Mom sent a card, probably hoping to reconnect now that the statute of limitations on her exploitation had passed. I returned it unopened. Lily had written a book about our lives, focusing on the trauma of separation. It sold well, funded by the same research institutions that had paid to keep us connected. She did talk show circuits, performed her pain for new audiences. I didn't watch any of it. My life was quiet, unremarkable, free. I worked, studied, made friends who knew nothing about my medical history, dated someone who touched my scars without asking for their story, built happiness in small private moments that belonged only to me. Sometimes I'd catch myself breathing in Lily's rhythm, the synchronization still embedded in muscle memory. But then I'd deliberately change the pattern, choosing my own pace. That was freedom, not the absence of connection, but the choice to breathe alone. The documentary won awards. The book became a bestseller. Mom and Dad did speaking engagements about the challenges of raising conjoined twins. Everyone profited from our story except me, and that was exactly how I wanted it. On quiet nights, I wondered if Lily ever regretted the performances, the lies, the way she'd turned our connection into a prison. But then I'd remember her fingers tracing threats on our ribs, her smile when she threw my phone against the wall, the calculated cruelty of her love. We were never meant to be one person. We were two girls forced to share space, and one of us had claimed it all. Separation hadn't called either of us. It had finally allowed us both to exist. My scar had faded to silver, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Sometimes I forgot it was there, living so fully in my singular body that the years of connection felt like someone else's dream. That was the gift of freedom, not forgetting the past, but no longer being defined by it. I built my life one independent breath at a time. Each exhale a choice that was mine alone. No performances, no payments, no one else's heartbeat drowning out my own. Just the quiet rhythm of a life lived on my own terms. Finally, completely free. The recovery room had felt impossibly spacious. I kept reaching for Lily's warmth, finding only cool hospital sheets. My body tilted to one side, unbalanced after 16 years of shared weight. The nurses had assured me this was normal. My muscles would learn. Dr. Lauren visited that afternoon, checking the surgical site with gentle hands. The incision ran along where our ribs had fused, now closed with neat sutures. She explained how they'd divided our liver, ensuring both halves would regenerate to full size. The procedure had taken 8 hours. Lily was recovering 2 floors up. I asked about seeing her. Dr. Lauren's expression tightened slightly before she explained that Lily had requested no contact during recovery. The medical team would respect both our wishes. I nodded, understanding. We'd shared everything for 16 years. Now we'd learn to heal apart. Physical therapy started the next day. A specialist named Maria guided me through basic movements, teaching my body its new boundaries. Standing felt foreign without Lily's counterweight. I gripped the parallel bars, legs shaking as I relearned balance. Maria encouraged each small step, reminding me that independence took time. Mom appeared outside my room on day 3, peering through the glass partition. The nurses had instructions about visitor restrictions, but she stood there for hours, clutching papers I couldn't read from my bed. Dad joined her eventually, both of them watching me like I was still their investment. I turned away, focusing on the ceiling tiles until they left. The social worker assigned to my case brought documentation about temporary housing. Since I was still 17, the state would provide transitional support, a small apartment near the hospital, basic furnishings, enough to start. She helped me fill out applications for benefits I'd never known existed: food assistance, medical coverage, job training programs. Lily's surgeon visited on day 5. He mentioned carefully that she was recovering well, but struggling with the adjustment. She'd been asking the nurses to check my vital signs, convinced something was wrong with her organs. They'd shown her the monitors, proving her independence. She hadn't believed them. I started walking the hospital corridors, building strength with each lap. Other patients smiled as I passed, some recognizing the determination in my gait. A man recovering from knee surgery became my hallway companion. We didn't talk much, just nodded as we passed, each focused on our own journey back to wholeness. The documentary director tried to visit. Marcus stood at the nurse's station with his camera operator, explaining they had footage rights. The head nurse, a woman who'd seen too much exploitation, told them visiting hours were for family only. When they argued, she threatened to call security. They left, but not before leaving business cards for when I was ready to share my story. Physical therapy expanded to include occupational training. I learned to dress myself without accommodating another body, to shower without worrying about angles and shared space. Simple tasks felt monumental: brushing teeth, tying shoes, existing in singular form. Dr. Lauren brought papers on day 7, medical power of attorney documents, ensuring Mom couldn't make decisions about my care anymore. Insurance forms that would transfer coverage to my name when I turned 18. She thought of everything, creating a legal framework for my independence. I signed each form carefully, my handwriting shaky but determined. No one else would ever sign my name again. The nutritionist created meal plans for one person. After years of sharing every bite, calculating portions that would sustain a single body felt strange. I practiced eating alone in my room, no longer matching Lily's pace or preferences. The freedom to choose my own food, to eat when I wanted, it was quietly revolutionary. Mom's lawyer sent a letter through hospital administration. She was contesting the separation, claiming we'd been coerced. The hospital's legal team responded swiftly. Nothing says loving mother like treating your daughter's bodies like a business deal gone bad. Moms out there with lawyers trying to unseparate their kids like they're returning a faulty toaster. The court had already ruled. The surgery was complete. There was nothing left to contest. 2 weeks after the surgery, I was discharged to the transitional apartment. It was small, just a single bed, a desk, a kitchenette, but it was mine. The first night, I lay awake, startled by the silence. No synchronized breathing, no whispered threats, no pressure of Lily's arm across my side. I cried, not because I missed her, but because I didn't. The therapist assigned to my case met with me twice a week. She helped me unpack the layers of manipulation, the gaslighting, the way Lily had used our connection to control my sense of self. We talked about identity, who I was without Lily, what I wanted from a life unshared. It was the first time I'd been asked questions about myself that didn't involve our condition. I enrolled in GED classes, determined to finish the education that had always come second to media interviews and specialist appointments. My teacher was a woman named June, with bright eyes and a quiet confidence. She never asked about my past, never treated me like a survivor. She just handed me a placement test and said, "Let's see where you are." I scored higher than expected. Lily wasn't the only one who'd been smart, just the only one allowed to show it. 3 months in, I got a part-time job at a local coffee shop. The manager didn't know who I was, just that I showed up early, learned fast, and didn't complain about the lunch rush. One customer eventually recognized me. He whispered something about the twins who'd been on the news. I smiled and told him he must be mistaken. He didn't press. The scar across my ribs became a quiet reminder of what I'd left behind. Some days I barely noticed it. Others, I traced it during showers like a line of demarcation. Before and after, her and me. Lily continued her media tour. She was cast in a docudrama where she played herself, detailing the betrayal of separation, the grief of losing her sister. Her book hit the bestseller list for 2 weeks, then disappeared. She gave interviews where she cried on cue, reciting old stories she'd once scripted for both of us. People believed her, or maybe they just wanted a tragedy to feel something about. I stopped reading the coverage after a while. It didn't matter what Lily said anymore. Her words no longer shaped my life. On my 18th birthday, Dr. Lauren called. She didn't say much, just that she was proud of me, that she hoped I was finding peace. I thanked her and told her I was applying to college. I wanted to study psychology, to understand how connection and control intertwined, how people like Lily learned to manipulate love into something sharp. "Sounds like you already understand more than most," she said. Later that night, I lit a candle and sat with the silence. There were no plans to celebrate, no cameras, no one asking for statements or footage or tears. Just a quiet evening in my own space. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself, not half of a whole, not a character in someone else's performance. Just Lisa, separate, whole, free. The world didn't notice when I took my first unaided steps into adulthood. There were no headlines, no flashbulbs. But for me, it was everything. Not because I'd escaped Lily, but because I'd finally chosen myself. And I would keep choosing myself every single day.